The legal fight grounding Rishi Sunak's plans to send asylum seekers to Rwanda this week broke out into the front benches. Robert Jenrick, immigration minister until his resignation a few days ago, today encouraged colleagues to vote down his own party's flagship bill, one designed to bypass the courts, but one that he says won't manage to.
I don't believe this bill will work. I think it will lead to a range of legal claims which will bog down our scheme and will not create the deterrent that he and I set out to achieve.
It all boils down to whether Rwanda can legally be declared a safe country for asylum seekers. The Supreme Court says not. But emergency legislation Rishi Sunak has put forward will, if Parliament votes with him, declare it so. The only recourse then left for asylum seekers would be to prove Rwanda would be a dangerous place for them specifically as an individual. Mr. Sunak and allies say the number of appeals on these grounds would be vanishingly small.
The legislation makes sure that people can be deported, and it deals with many of the cases and many of the reasons which were used beforehand.
But
it strikes out human rights legislation in a way that some people I know find strong meat.
It's not just the right wing of the party who find the bill so hard to stomach. While they want it to go further, moderates are alarmed, both at the bypassing of courts, and they say it risks breaching international legal obligations towards refugees.
The Prime Minister says he's sort of within an inch of, as it were, going over the top into something that people would regard as illegal. Indeed, excuse me, the Rwandan government apparently has said you can't do anything that breaks your international obligations. And we want to test that proposition.
Both factions are meeting tomorrow to decide which way to vote. If 29 Tories rebel, Sunak will not only lose his majority, but his political capital too. It's not a confidence issue, he insists, but he's put stopping the boats at the heart of his electoral warm-up.
I'm determined to actually fix this problem, and the people who want to do something else clearly don't.
Allies accuse the loudest critics of harbouring their own electoral ambitions, fostering a rightward lurch in the hope of taking over themselves. Former Home Secretary Suella Braverman again attacked Sunak's plan on the pages of the Sunday Telegraph, saying migration was straining community cohesion and calling protests against Israel's actions in Gaza hate marches, thoughts echoed by her former immigration minister.
I think there are communities in our country where people are leading parallel lives. I mean, I've seen that recently, for example, with the marches through London, where I saw some people who simply did not share British values.
It's not just a showdown over his bill that the PM faces this week, but a grilling too at the COVID inquiry tomorrow. All the while, he's stalked by rumours of rebels plotting over an Italian meal, though appetite for yet another Tory leader is, for now, low.
Well, the internal fighting in the Conservative Party has somewhat overshadowed the important debate around Rwanda's ability to safely welcome asylum seekers, if the UK government ever succeeds in sending them there.
Rwanda is a safe country to send those seeking asylum in Britain because the UK government says so. That's Rishi Sunak's position, and he wants to pass a law to that effect.
Unequivocally, Rwanda is a safe country.
Here's someone who disagrees, and she's told Mr Sunak why in a letter today. Victoire Ingabire Umuhoza being released from prison in 2018. 8 years after being locked up on trumped-up charges, she says, when she tried to contest the 2010 presidential election. Paul Kagame won that one. He wins them all. In the last election, he got 99% of the vote. When the Supreme Court ruled the UK government's Rwanda plan was unlawful last month, it raised concerns about the treatment of refugees in Rwanda. The UK government says those concerns are out of date. Both governments claim Rwanda has made significant progress, not least on human rights. The Rwandan president's political opponents tell a different story.
Well, earlier I spoke to Victoire Ingabire Umuhoza, who you saw in that report, and started by asking her whether, from her perspective, within Rwanda, the country is safe.
I feel bad because I am one of victims of the human rights violation in our country. I spent 80 years in prison for the politically motivated judicial process. and I was released after 8 years, which out 5 years I spent them in a solitary confinement. And the Africa Human People Rights Court had declared me innocent, but until today, Rwanda government does not recognize the decision of African court. That is why I am wondering if Rwanda signed the treaty with the British government, and one day it will not respect what is the content of the treaty, what will happen?
Rishi Sunak wants to pass a law in the UK to say that Rwanda is safe. How safe does Rwanda feel to you where you're sitting in Rwanda?
Yeah, Rwanda is not a free country. For example, you can take example of the political activities are restricted in our country. Today, 8 members of my political party are in prison. So the government does not tolerate any kind of critics. For example, you know that in 2018, 12 refugees, Congolese refugees, were shot at by the police because they demonstrated on the street. So it is the country where people cannot explain their mind.
You paint a picture of Rwanda where you say you were thrown in jail for opposing the president. Others are as well. While the UK paints a picture of Rwanda as a safe and prosperous country, they say a lot of these complaints are out of date, even though only a few years ago, of course, the UK government was making the same arguments.
I don't understand what the British government say today to declare Rwanda a safe country. 2 years ago, the ambassador of UK in Geneva raised the problem of human rights issues in Rwanda. This human rights issue in Rwanda is not something that you can really resolve in 1 day, in 2 days. I don't know why the British government want to send absolutely those refugees in Rwanda. They know that in 2018, Israel has sent the refugees in Rwanda. Today, no one is still in Rwanda. They were back in Europe. This I am sure that those refugees that the UK will send in Rwanda, they will be back in Europe, because what they need well-being, they need freedom, what they cannot find in Rwanda. So sure, they will go back in Europe.
The UK says this is about a partnership. Rwanda is earning its money and providing something in return. How do you see this?
It is a kind of, sorry to say it, but I find that is a kind of modern slavery.
Modern slavery?
So that means, yes, modern slavery. That means I give you money and you will take people that I don't want to have. And today they say that we have refugees, we don't want those refugees, so you have to take those refugees and they will repay you. That is modern slavery. And that is something that everybody cannot accept and tolerate.
Because what the Rwandan government says is that it's got a long history of welcoming refugees, and there are tens of thousands of refugees already in Rwanda, and this is a continuation of that.
Of course, I know we have more than 100,000 refugees from neighboring countries. More of them have been spent more than 20 years in refugee camp. Can you imagine? Because the resources of Rwanda are limited, so those refugees cannot be integrated in our society. So that means that the other refugees that will be sent in Rwanda from the UK will not be integrated, because Rwanda has no means to provide the rubber solution to those refugees.
Victoria Ingabire-Umuhoza, thank you so much for speaking with us. Thank you.
Thank you too.
We asked the Rwandan government for a statement in response to some of the allegations you just heard, and they told us any balanced assessment of Rwanda's human rights record over the past 29 years would deem our progress to be remarkable, but yet certain critics continue to willfully distort this reality. And in relation to the killing of refugees in 2018, they said it was an isolated incident of demonstrations and violence that was investigated fully. Lessons, they say, have been learned to ensure that such an incident is not repeated. And they added, Rwanda's track record has been recognised by the UNHCR, which continues to work closely with Rwanda to care for the over 135,000 refugees that they host. And the UK government told us it is committed to doing whatever it takes to stop the boats and get flights to Rwanda off the ground. That's why they say they've addressed the Supreme Court's findings, and they say that Rwanda is a safe country that cares deeply about supporting refugees, and the UK government's bill will make this clear, they say, in UK law.